BlackRock has come out this week and launched a new Bitcoin product, and everyone's wondering, is this a direct competitor to Michael Saylor's Stretch, or actually just more Wall Street products competing with the likes of the JP Morgans and the Morgan Stanley? Now, ignoring their differences for now, Stretch from MicroStrategy has proved there is significant demand for this type of product. Over the past 4 weeks, Stretch by itself has helped MicroStrategy buy over 50,000 Bitcoin, and in the last 4 days alone has acquired over 4,500 Bitcoin. It's really insane what we're watching with Stretch. But are these new products going to accelerate the supply suffocation, or does Wall Street have a different agenda in mind, guys? Obviously, I think you know where my bias is going to be on this. So let me just jump into the Bitcoin Mag article, kind of explaining this. And here we have BlackRock files ticker for Bitcoin premium income ETF as Bitcoin strategy expands. BlackRock advanced a new premium income ETF strategy, revealing the ticker, it's BITA, B-I-T-A, for a new fund position as a, and this is the big, I think, emphasis here, yield-focused sequel to its existing Bitcoin ETF lineup. We've been hearing this forever in terms of Bitcoin. What do a lot of people usually say in regards to why they will not invest in Bitcoin? Well, it's because it doesn't have the same characteristics that most people look for when they go to invest. And one of them is, where is their yield? How do you get yield on Bitcoin? What do you just do with Bitcoin? You just buy it and hold it? Like, I want yield on top of it. Well, we're starting to see that Wall Street is trying to launch these products. So here we go. Of course, they revealed the ticker, and oh, sorry. I thought it booted me off, guys. Again, describing this as a sequel to their existing Bitcoin ETF lineup. We still don't know what the management fees are going to be, but suffice to say, they're probably going to be pretty low, considering that Morgan Stanley just dropped their latest ETF offering or announcement, and it's about 14 basis points. So it's probably going to be pretty low. Now, this is where it gets a little interesting. Again, this isn't a one-to-one comparison to Michael Saylor's Stretch product, but you can see that this idea of yield on top of Bitcoin is catching on Wall Street. And here's the, technicals. The proposed ETF is designed to combine direct Bitcoin exposure with an income-generating options overlay. According to the prior SEC filings, the structure is intended to hold Bitcoin-linked assets, basically the IBIT ETF, while also writing covered call options on those holdings. The strategy aims to generate premium income while still tracking Bitcoin's price performance net of expenses. The fund is, of course, just a new product in this institutional Bitcoin product rollout beyond just passive exposure and into the, quote, yield-focused strategies. Of course, it's just a constant theme we've been seeing since the ETF launch in 2023, or was it 2024? I forget. I think it was 2023, right?
January of 2024.
Okay. Well, my dude, I don't know what time I don't know what days are anymore. Anyways, you're starting to see this is actually happening. Remember, a little flashback here. JP Morgan offered a Bitcoin structured note. This was the end of November, beginning of December, and it seems like they are doing something similar. They're trying to harness the volatility and offer yield to investors because that's what they're looking for. They don't want to just sit on Bitcoin and get number go up. They want to hold Bitcoin and get paid on top of it. And I don't know if you guys saw this yesterday, but Saylor did do a pretty interesting tweet here. And I literally saw people wondering what is he even tweeting about. And I'm like, guys, he's talking about the Stretch product. Like, it's not that difficult. Here's his tweet. 3 perfect products: a car that drives you, a robot that serves you, and an asset that pays you. Again, one of the things we've been saying here in regards to, I wouldn't say Saylor's recent shift in rhetoric, but he's no longer just talking to the plebs. He's no longer just talking to us. He's talking to the corporations, the institutions, the sovereign nation state level. He's talking to them in terms that they understand. especially now that they launched the stretch product, which is catching on like wildfire. It's absolutely insane what they're doing with stretch. So let me show you what they've done in the last week alone, let alone what we've seen in the last couple of months, or rather, month or so. So this is the stretch product just this week, and it is a short week. Today is Good Friday. Most, Wall Street trading houses are closed right now. So in a short week, Strategy Stretch, STRC, was able to buy an estimated 4,535 Bitcoin this week, just this week alone. Doesn't account for all the other Bitcoin that has been attracted to, or rather the capital has been attracted to Stretch so that they can buy more Bitcoin. And here we go. March 31st saw Stretch erupt with an estimated 2,724 Bitcoin purchase on a staggering $367.36 million in volume in a single session. Now, this week, the 4-day week, produced an estimated 4,535.58 Bitcoin brought through Stretch Bitcoin funding activity, totaling approximately $741 million in volume. Again, for context, Bitcoin mines produces 450 coins per day, meaning that Stretch alone this week has bought more than 2.5 times the total new supply mined during that same period. It's what we were saying yesterday. Yes, there might be a consolidation in terms of Bitcoin treasury companies, but what we're seeing with Stretch, and further what we're seeing from Wall Street trying to create these yield products, you're seeing that this is probably going to be the trend that is building up. Now, a one-to-one comparison between BlackRock's new BITA ETF and the Stretch product, it's not necessarily a one-to-one comparison. Again, guys, above my pay grade, but I did do a little chat GBTing here just so I can kind of wrap my head around, is there a comparable here? And even though the products aren't the same, there is something that you can compare here. So I'm not going to pull up the chat GBT, but here is the BlackRock BITA ETF strategy. It's basically, like I said, sell covered calls on Bitcoin to generate income. It's a yield ETF built on top of Bitcoin volatility. Now, the Stretch product and the BITA product are obviously, they're not the same, but they're conceptually converging. That's, chat GBT here. Both are trying to answer the same problem. And this is why the comparison is very interesting. And the question is, how do we turn Bitcoin into yield for TradFi investors? That's what the investors want. Yes, maybe from a purely Bitcoin maxi, Bitcoin only, just hodl Bitcoin, take it into self-custody. It might not be up your alley here, obviously.
Could you go like this? I want to understand the mechanism. So essentially, it depends on the volatility of Bitcoin for it to generate yield.
Yeah. So essentially what the BITA product is going to do, they're going to hold spot Bitcoin, or sorry, not even spot Bitcoin. They're going to hold the IBIT ETF, and then they're going to do covered calls. So as we saw with the JP Morgan structured note, it is basically, how do you put this? Like understanding that Bitcoin is volatile, and then BlackRock is trying to sell that volatility as income, which we've heard Saylor say.
I've heard there's other stocks that do this already.
Yeah, no, this is like a very normal thing for most commodities and ETFs. So they're essentially doing the TradFi kind of playbook now with Bitcoin, which is very interesting in terms of the kind of the new trend that we're seeing from Wall Street of Bitcoin being as collateral. It's really starting to feel that Bitcoin is pursuing collateral moment.
I mean, it's quite interesting to me, like the different mechanisms between, like, for example, Stretch and then the IBIT, kind of solution. From a stability standpoint, the IBIT one, because it's just relying on Bitcoin's volatility, I would say is more of a safer bet from BlackRock, which I think you would assume, since it is this large asset manager, they have no need to take huge risks. The Saylor one, I would say it's a bit more risky because it really kind of depends on, and I know Saylor has said something differently, but it really does depend on that thesis that Saylor
number go up.
Basically that it by 2045, his base case is that Bitcoin's $13 million per coin. And that implies that Bitcoin from here to then is going to have an average of a 20% CAGR, which allows him to, and he's shown graphs on this and stuff. It allows him to essentially take away the volatility from the person that does want that fixed income return. And then he's able to keep the difference, right? Someone in the chat said JRR token says the BITA prospects reads a lot like BTCI and other covered calls ETFs. Stretch is truly unique in its approach. Yeah, this
without a doubt.
This is exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah.
But Saylor is taking on more risk with the stretch product because, again, it really relies on the thesis of Bitcoin hitting $13 million per coin, because that's how it makes sense. If Bitcoin is giving a yearly 20% CAGR and Saylor's saying, listen, I'll take the volatility away from you. I'll take the volatility away. I'll give you 11% instead. I'll shoulder the volatility because I'm expecting the asset to appreciate 20%. Then essentially MicroStrategy makes the difference. That's how the stretch product works in my mind. And it's super attractive, that 11.5%. I hate using the word yield. I don't even want to use.
I know, right? It feels dirty. It really does.
I don't even want to use the word yield. The word yield in our industry has amounted to disasters. Every time I hear you're going to get a yield,
what could go wrong with Blackrocks?
You're going to get a yield on your Bitcoin. It's like, no, dude, you are the yield, bro. The reason the stretch product is different, and I think it really kind of differentiates itself from like, you know, what they were doing, what the crypto industry was doing in the past, is Saylor's making a very calculated bet, right? He made this presentation in 2024. It didn't really change. That was the year that President Trump he was running for election. Now he's president. Made his famous speech at the Bitcoin conference. That's where Saylor had this epic presentation and he showed it off and he was like, listen, my base case is I think we're going to hit $13 million per coin by 2045. If that comes, and you know, there's a bull case and there's a bear case, but if that is true, then again, you're going to get that 20% CAGR. It averages out to that 20%. And if you do get that 20% CAGR for the next 20 years, then they're making money with that stretch product, right? They're taking away the risk from you, the perceived risk, right? They're giving you a 11.5% dividend payment, much better to say than yield, right? And you know, they get the upside, right? So it's genius. Saylor's taking a lot more risk, but I mean, look, at the end of the day, you know, we're on the side, we're simply Bitcoin guys. Like, we're on the side of Saylor. Like, I think that if Bitcoin doesn't at least reach the market cap of gold, I think Bitcoin has failed. That's my honest opinion. I think, you know, you have the famous total addressable market, right, which is 400 trillion. Right now, Bitcoin's sitting at 1.5. So are you trying to tell me that Bitcoin, if this is the best money the world has ever seen, if this is the scarcest asset the world has ever seen, if this truly is a monetary black hole that sucks everything into it, right? And all the memes and all the theses and all the things that we've been saying, right? Vijay Boyapati's the bullish case for Bitcoin. Like, we've heard all the bullish cases. Like, we've heard all the theories. Like, we've heard it written in many different ways, but like, it's at a point where, okay, it's put up or shut up time. Is Bitcoin going to do that? I fundamentally believe it is. But if everyone believed it was, then Bitcoin would be at a much higher price right now. The risk would be taken away, right? Saylor has said this famously when he went on stage. He was basically like, look, like, by the time the bankers tell you to buy Bitcoin, it's going to be at $10 million per coin, right? So there is an element of risk that you're taking, but with that element of risk, I'm going to use Saylor's quote again, volatility is life, right? The volatility to the downside that we currently experience is the reason you're going to get volatility to the upside. Opti and I are yearning for the days where you would have a 50% drop in a day, right? Back in the day, it was like so painful. And we're like, dude, like this is terrible. But it's like, you kind of don't have those days in Bitcoin anymore. Which again, it sucks to the downside, but it's also really good for the upside, because you would have these crazy days in Bitcoin where Bitcoin would be up 50% in a day, right? So yeah, the volatility is decreasing. I don't think it's decreasing rapidly. Like we're down 50% in like 6 months. Like that's pretty effing bad for any asset. So you can't say, oh, the volatility is completely gone. The volatility is there. And if the volatility is there, that means that there is definitely upside. And let me know, guys, what other asset do you think is going to give a 2 to 3 to 400% return over the next 3 to 4 years? Nothing's guaranteed in life, right? Nothing's guaranteed. But what other asset would be able to deliver that type of performance? I don't think there is another one. And from like the people that, you know, perhaps you guys are class of 21 or you guys are class of 24, you guys are currently playing your dues right now. Like from a risk adjusted return perspective, right? 2017, like my class and Opti's class, 2016, 2017, Bitcoin was not a sure bet at all. There was no content. You couldn't look up Bitcoin content on the internet. It was Andreas Antonopoulos. He was the only one. And Max Kaiser, Max and Stacy, shout out to them. But that was it. Bitcoin content didn't exist. All the literature that exists now, all the guides, all the educational stuff that exists today did not exist back then. It was barren, right? So you were taking on a lot more risk. There was the block size wars. There's the China mining ban. You were taking a lot more risk. Now with risk came greater upside, but to think that you would be as comfortable in investing in Bitcoin in 2017 and you would have that same mindset today is completely dishonest and disingenuous, because it felt like the Wild West. And I think the only reason that, you know, people like me and Opti did it was because we were desperate. We didn't have another choice. Like we looked, Opti has this famous story where he goes and tries to open a Schwab account and they're like, they laughed him out of the room. They're like, get out of here.
True story.
This was the days before Robinhood and all that stuff. So it was at a point in my life, I was 23 or 24 years old. And I was like, dude, I don't have anything else to lose. Right. That's the key. That's the key thing. It's like, look, like I don't have anything else to lose. If I put my money in the stock market, I'll get 10%, you know, like a year at best case scenario. Like what good is 10% if you have $100? Like what good is 10% if you have $1,000? Like that's not really going to get you far. Right. So we saw it as a way out. I would think that's accurate.
The only way out.
I guess I'm speaking for you, but I saw it as a way out. Like I was not in a good place in my life back then. Neither, I don't think Opti would fall into that same category.
I was broke.
And Bitcoin was like
still broke.
We don't have any Bitcoin. But you know, it's like Bitcoin was literally the only option. You're like, okay, I see this, and I'm either gonna go down with the ship or you go up with the ship. And the awesome part about like holding Bitcoin is you don't go down the rabbit hole before you start holding it. You start holding it, and then when you realize that a big portion of your net worth is in Bitcoin, then you start asking really good questions about money. And you start asking really good questions. You're like, what is the Federal Reserve? What is fiat money? What is Bitcoin? What is the problem that Bitcoin sets out to solve? And then you start having all these like euphoria moments in your head and you start connecting the dots and you're like, oh my God, I am holding the best asset the world has ever seen. Now, we are at a crossroads right now, ladies and gentlemen. We are at a crossroads in the sense that I think the retail phase, there'll always be a portion of Bitcoin buyers that are retail, but the retail phase, I think, is behind us. I think we're in the crossing the chasm currently. This is what we're currently doing. I really believe this. I strongly believe this. We're currently crossing the chasm into the early majority phase, right? You have like the typical, you know, bell curve adoption, right? First, you have the innovators and you have the early adopters, and then you have the early majority. We're entering the early majority phase. And with the early majority phase, you have the institutions coming, you have sovereign wealth funds coming, you have nation states coming. And like every single bear market before this, guess what? They're capitulating like we all did, like retail all did. It's the same thing. It's the same thing. It's just happening on a much bigger scale, right? So listen, I'm on Team Saylor. One of the things that I didn't like about this particular cycle was that it was so institutionally driven, was that it was so driven not by retail, but by institutions. You know, that's where the meme came out, paper Bitcoin summer, suit coiners, all of that stuff. I think people forgot the importance of self-custody and the power that comes with self-custody. That's one of the things I didn't like about this cycle. And then this cycle, we didn't have a euphoric top like we normally do. We topped on apathy. We topped on people just getting tired, saying, I've had enough. I think I could find better returns elsewhere, right? And I would say that is nature healing itself. That's what Bitcoin has always done throughout its history. The halving cycles have been followed to a T. I don't think this time is any different. I think the halving cycle is intact. If Bitcoin goes up 100K in the next 4 or 5 months, I'll be sure to offer Opti and everyone else an apology. But until that happens,
how about some sats?
I give you sats. I give you sats. I don't know what you're talking about.
I'm trolling.
So, but you know, like I think what Saylor is doing with Stretch is bold. It's very, very bold, because if it works, right, and it's working, right, but if it works for a period of time, like, you know, let's say a decade, right, or like 15 years, or like 20 years, it is a fundamental game changer to society and investing as a whole, because people, an 8 to 10% return is considered ideal, right? The fact that a fixed income product is giving you that on a yearly basis is gnarly. And then they're using that product to do what? To buy more Bitcoin. And Bitcoin has absolute scarcity, right? So Opti pointed it out. Just this week alone, 4,500 Bitcoin. That
it might have got to $1 billion this week if it wasn't a short week.
Stretch by itself is buying more Bitcoin than the amount of Bitcoin that's actively being mined. And by the way, that's only going to get thinner. Like, there's a halving, and I think it's less than like 3 years away, right? I don't know when the next halving is. The last halving was
2 years.
24. So yeah, so
about
24,
2 years,
26, so in 28. So next halving is in 28. So it's just going to get more scarce, ladies and gentlemen. Like, it's just going to get more scarce. So like, it's not easy. It's not hard to do the math here. And I know that, like, we as humanity went back to the moon before Bitcoin did, but there's
still time.
There's still time, right? No, I think those astronauts are going to get to the, I think they're going to get to the moon before.
And let's be fair, 100K is not the moon anymore. That's just like baseline. So
no, I mean, I think 100K was like very symbolic, and it felt really good. But you know, I think we were all expecting more. And here's the thing, guys. This is the crunch time. But Bitcoin has been in these situations before. First time Bitcoin hit $1. Like, you look at those old videos of those people, like, they were losing their minds. First time Bitcoin hit $100. First time Bitcoin hit $1,000. First time Bitcoin hit $100,000. It was unbelievable. It was theoretically possible, but it was unbelievable every single time it achieved and reached those levels, right? So saying Bitcoin at $1 million, again, just put yourself in the past and try to look into the future, and you're like, okay, you know, I could see that happening, right? Like, even saying $5 million Bitcoin, even saying Hal Finney's like famous $10 million prediction, like, think about that for a second. Like, that sounds nuts. Like, you're like, that's crazy. Like, that's absurd.
It only sounds nuts when I tell it to a normie.
I think it sounds absurd. I mean, like, I think it sounds absurd. Like, with Bitcoin's current price action, like, I got to be honest, guys, like, 2021, I thought Bitcoin was going to hit 100K, and I think it was destined to hit 100K, but the China mining ban happened. And then this cycle, I was at least expecting, you know, $250,000 Bitcoin. So right now, it's kind of put up or shut up right now. So, like, let's see if Bitcoin can reach $250,000. Let's see if Bitcoin can reach $500,000. We have all the theories. We have all the literature. We have everything. Like, we had every good book about Bitcoin has been written already. right? Everything that there needs to be said about Bitcoin has been said, right? Now it is time for Bitcoin to prove itself as an asset. And if we're right, if Saylor's right, the world is going to fundamentally change completely. And it's going to be a world where you won't be able to ignore Bitcoin for conservative or ideological reasons. You're going to be forced to own Bitcoin or risk getting left behind. It's like that. So it's really black and white. I've always said the success of Bitcoin is binary. It either goes up or it goes to zero. There's literally no in between. Let's see what happens, man. Let's see what happens. But that's crazy that and you know what's interesting too, Opti, to connect it with the intro story. I actually got a text from a friend of mine who works at, I can't say the specific bank, but like one of these big banks that you guys all know. And he was like, hey, Nico, look, we're launching a product. And it's a Bitcoin based product, right? It's like one of those like iBit type of things, like covered calls, whatever, stuff like that. And this is a very conservative bank. Like this is a bank that has never really liked Bitcoin, has never taken a positive approach on Bitcoin. And they're coming out and they're launching products on that. Do you think they're doing that out of the goodness of their heart, or because they've watched Simply Bitcoin and they just all of a sudden got orange pilled and they're like, oh my God, yeah, separate money from state, bro. Bitcoin or slavery. Like, no, dude, they're looking at it and they're looking to make a buck. The same reason that the Citibank, representative showed up to Bitcoin for corporations. Like, she showed up there because Citibank sees an opportunity. And I'll tell you what, guys, if we're right about this stuff, I don't know. I've been saying this for 6 years. So far we've been right. So far we've had a pretty effing good track record on Bitcoin. But if we're right about this, 20 to 40% of the ultra high net worth population of the world is going to be Bitcoiners. That percentage of the world is the percentage of the world that has the most amount of influence. They influence governments. They influence societies. And think about that. 20 to 40% of those people in 10, 20 years are going to be ideological Bitcoiners. What does that tell you about the future, man? I'm honestly really, really effing excited, right? I mean, if you just take a look at, I think Trump, I think he did okay. I think he could have done better. I think he did okay though. I think getting Ross freed, the executive order, strategic Bitcoin reserve, if clarity gets passed, I think the Genius Act is a good thing. So I think he did good. But we need more. We need to ask for more, right? This was a good first step. It's a good first step. But we need to get to a point where it doesn't matter whether it's a Democrat or Republican. They're both Bitcoiners, right? I don't like this partisan divide, because it essentially risks a huge pendulum shift. And you can, you already know that the Republicans are going to get smoked in the House, and they might actually lose the Senate too. So anyways, man, Opti, any more thoughts before move on to the next segment?
No, not really. It's really, the only thing I would add is what the chat is saying. It's where is it? We are right. There is no if. The only thing we don't know is the timing on this, and I think Saylor stretch product is. It's really. Oh, sorry about that. Really. I hate using the cliche iPhone moment, but the amount of capital that is coming into it, the amount of capital that it's attracting, I think it's really showing one thing. Nika said, we've been right about everything. I think the only thing that we overestimated as Bitcoiners as a community is just the demand for Bitcoin and really the resistance from people with capital looking at Bitcoin and not really thinking from their perspective. And now we're seeing that these products are coming out and people are getting a lot more, I don't know, used to the idea of Bitcoin. But once that capital does get attracted to Bitcoin, once there's that demand that we all expect, and it seems, this is why I'm putting in the context of Stretch, and it seems to maybe be coming from Stretch and maybe other products similar to that, it's going to get crazy. Like if Saylor basically buys $1 billion a week through the Stretch product, and I think that would probably increase with more demand, that unlimited buying pressure is going to be there, and things are going to fundamentally change. So that's the only thing I really want to add. But on that note, guys, for today's show, I got a clip from the VanEck CEO talking about the war, and we got some new numbers about the war in the Middle East. So it sounds like Larry Lepard is right, and the big print is on the horizon. I'm going to show you that. And then Matt Hill should be here like literally right now. We started a little late. He should be here in like 2 minutes.
Matt Hill is the founder and CEO of Start9. They're all about sovereign computing. So we're going to be talking about that. At this point, you know, first step is obviously taking self-custody of your coins. Second step is running your own version of the Bitcoin software, aka running your own node. And Start9 has these amazing products where you could just buy it outright. It's open source. You plug it in, boom, you're running a Bitcoin node. You can connect that with your whatever wallet you use, your Electron wallet, your Sparrow wallet, depending on what you like, right? I'm old school. I really like the Electron one. Sparrow's cool. I just haven't been able to migrate. Anyhow, let's start the show. We're going to be right back. Today's episode is brought to you by Bitcoin Well Infinite. If you're a serious Bitcoin buyer, you've probably hit the same wall. Most platforms make you give up custody just to play by the rules. Bitcoin Well Infinite fixes that. They're North America's only publicly traded, non-custodial OTC desk listed on the TSX Venture Exchange, which means transparent operations and zero counterparty risk.
You buy Bitcoin, you take immediate control, period. For trades over $50,000, you get a dedicated executive Bitcoin advisor, competitive spread starting at 1%, and immediate delivery straight to your own wallet. No custody risk, no withdrawal fees, just institutional grade execution with full asset control. If you want to buy Bitcoin the right way, book a free consultation at bitcoinwell.com/OTC or email infinite@bitcoinwell.com.
I want to give a shout out to our partner, StampSeed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed phrases really secure? StampSeed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need for you to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of just writing them down on paper. Paper is fragile. Titanium plates are strong. Your words are actually stamped into the titanium plate with this hammer and these letter stamping tools. Once the words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They're also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and time-proof. And now you can customize your titanium seed plates. You can upload your design or logo, and they will laser engrave it on the back of your seed plate, the opposite side of where the words are. Stamp your seed on StampSeed and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store.
All right, guys, we are back. What's up, Matt? Good to see you, man. It's been a minute. All right, let me run through the numbers real quick. Matt, we have changed it up a little bit. We start the show live, then you pop in. We'll talk about a few things. But anyways, the current Bitcoin price. Can you hear me? Can you hear me? Oh, Matt. All right. The current Bitcoin. Oh, all right. The current
in here right now or no? Should I?
Yeah. I mean, if you got other things to do, you can pop back in 10 minutes. Whatever you want to do, man.
I'll see you in 10.
All right. Okay. All right, guys. The current Bitcoin price is $66,900. The discount from all-time high is 47%. The market cap is at 1.34 trillion, and the block height is 943,527. So obviously, guys, we are all totally aware at this point of what's going on in the Middle East. And if you guys all watch the primetime announcement the other night. From everything we know, it's going to be, 2 to 3 more weeks. And then yesterday, I guess we went back in and started blowing some other stuff up. The U.S. is. And when it comes from a Bitcoin's perspective, there's always the idea of, fiat is the money of war, Bitcoin is the money of peace. And I saw this interesting clip this morning. It was on CNBC, and it was the VanEck CEO. And they're kind of asking him what he currently thinks is going on. And then I saw a lot of other Bitcoiners kind of mentioning something very similar. So let's play the clip real quick, and then I think maybe put some pieces together, and it might not be the most favorable conversation, but this is the most latest news that we have coming out of the Middle East, potentially the time frame and how much money this is going to cost. Just to put it bluntly and shortly, it seems like the big print is coming. It's on the horizon, guys. And I know there's a lot of friction and there's a lot of things that could potentially push back on that. But let's watch this clip, and then I'll, add a little more details, a little more spice to this conversation. Here's the VanEck CEO.
And Bitcoin in particular, because it's far and away the biggest one out there. There are now retail avenues, institutional avenues by which you can use exchange-traded products. You don't have to have a digital wallet yourself. What exactly does that kind of demand profile look like? And how has it changed, say, since the beginning of the war to where we are now? Has it materially been affected by the kind of price volatility that we've seen?
Adoption continues to grow, and the best leading indicator is the surveys. Whether you ask retail investors or institutional investors, do you plan to allocate more to this asset class in the future? The answer is yes. And we're seeing that at the sovereign level, where the first central bank has just bought Bitcoin for its foreign exchange reserves. We're seeing that obviously across Wall Street, whether it's Morgan Stanley filing for a Bitcoin ETF, and the retail investor, especially outside the U.S., continues to allocate. So at some point, the bill for this war will come due, and the fiscal and monetary largesse in G7 will become dominant again from a narrative perspective.
Now, I really want to emphasize just that one quote. At a certain point, the bill for this war will come through, and we will start to see, depending on how long it is prolonged, how long this is going to happen for, there is a cost to this. Now, we also saw this get tweeted yesterday. Oops, wrong one, guys. He'll be back. He'll be back. Hold on, guys. Oh, here we are. Wrong one. We're on the wrong one. Okay, so we saw this apparently reported from Reuters. Trump unveils $1.5 trillion defense budget, the largest yearly U.S. military spending increase since World War II. Obviously, from a Bitcoin perspective, I think Samson Mao kind of summed this up perfectly. War and money are inextricably linked. And then I saw this from Larry Lepard. And this chart I think it really puts everything into context here. Larry tweets, as my book details, nearly every major inflation in the U.S. history came from wartime spending starting in 1776 and 1812. World War I doubled the price level, as did World War II. The only exception was 2020, which involved warlike spending. So what comes next? How are we going to pay for this? It is the big print. You can see here, U.S. defense spending, total national defense in billions. As you can see, yes, it's been slowly increasing, but next year's defense spending is going to dwarf everything before, literally adding a 50% increase in spending. And obviously, I know some of you guys in the chat are maybe more Trump favorable. We got a lot of flack for being anti-war on this show. But as we can see, that
I still stand on the
I agree. Side. I agree. There's still this idea the big print is coming. We just don't know exactly where it's coming from. If you guys have been following along with what's going on with the Fed, we're seeing literally record-breaking Treasury buybacks right now. You could argue that we are already in a QE, not QE environment, but it might be a little different than it was before. It's not going to be helicopter money like we saw in 2020. We are just seeing that the amount of money that they're going to be spending is going to start dwarfing the amount of money that we've spent in the past.
Oh, Matt's saying he's just waiting.
I'm here.
Oh, he's here. Oh, okay.
Matt!
I didn't know what you wanted me. I came in 10
I thought you
minutes
said
ago.
you'd come back. I thought you said you'd come back.
Yeah, I was
Matt
waiting
is
for
here.
a cue of some kind. I got one.
Matt Hill is here, ladies and gentlemen, founder and CEO of Start9. You see, one of the things that we have back here on this TV is a Start9 logo. I'll point it out when it pops up. But anyways, super happy to have Matt on the show. And Start9 has a major announcement in terms of a product that they've been working on for a period of time now. There it is. See, Matt? Look at that. Oh.
Nice.
And you guys are releasing a router, which is a big deal. So let's talk about that. Matt, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me back. Yeah, let's talk about it. So the big elephant in the room for Start9 has been StartOS 040. That is something we kicked off 3 years ago in March of 2023, and we have been working on it for 3 years. We thought it was going to take like a year to a year and a half, so we were exactly double wrong, and people have been very patient with us along the way. But we finally wrapped it up and went into public beta 2 days ago, and we'll be iterating that very quickly now. But public beta is considered stable and usable, and we are encouraging people to update. We don't promise that it's bug-free, but it is absolutely stable and ready for production use case. What also happened during that time is what you're showing on the screen here is the router caught up to StartOS 040 because we were working on it in parallel. We expected 040 to be done probably a year before the router was, but 040 took a lot longer than expected, and the router actually went faster than expected. And so they're coming out at the same time. So Start9 is as of now, releasing StartOS 040 and the RISC-V router. So quick highlights of this router. It is based on RISC-V architecture. It is as open as a computing device can be in this world. It has fully open software stack from the firmware. The board schematics are published on GitHub. The firmware itself is open source. The operating system is open source. So this is a fully open router based on OpenWRT, which is a maximally powerful open source router operating system that we then extended, wrapped in order to make it actually usable, because OpenWRT is notoriously difficult for anyone, even network engineers, to use successfully. But it affords all the primitives that are necessary to do anything you could possibly want to with a network. So we simply created some abstractions on top of OpenWRT that make it actually accessible and usable to a normal person. I feel confident in saying that this router is the best router in the world. And that is with vetting quite a few, using many more. And I think that we have the most powerful, most user-friendly, most accessible, most open and secure router on planet Earth. And it is entirely open source, so you don't need to buy anything from us. You can simply grab your old router, so long as it is compatible and capable of running OpenWRT. You can flash it with StartWRT and be up and running with the best router in the world for absolute free.
That's incredibly exciting. Matt, I think we've been talking about this moment for years now. So it's really cool to see it build up to this point. Guys, for anyone who doesn't know, you guys know that not only am I a huge fan of Start9, but we're big advocates of running your own node here at Simply Bitcoin. If you don't run your own node, you don't run your own version of the Bitcoin software. So I remember asking Matt this question many years ago when I bought the Start9 Pure, which I know is on a clearance sale right now on start9.com. I got one of the first 100 editions with the custom Madex packaging and everything, and I got all giddy and stuff. But I remember having this conversation with Matt. I was like, look, like if you think about a node, it's like this box where it's like literally, plugged into your router, kind of like on the side of it, and it's just kind of like this like little box, and it's just this computer. And then I remember talking to you, Matt, and I was like, Matt, like, why can't the router and the node be the same thing? And then you're like, yeah, Nico, I'm working on it. And this is like a multi-year type of conversation. And now I've gotten to this point where Start9, you guys have released the first easy to install open source router in the world. Would that be correct to say, Matt?
I don't think it's the first open source router. I believe it is the first RISC-V router. And RISC-V, for those who don't know, is an alternate instruction set for low-level computing operations. So the traditional ones are x86, also known as AMD64, and then AArch64, also known as ARM. Those are the two instruction sets that almost every computer on the planet run. But RISC-V is a new instruction set that's going to give these old boys a run for their money, and it is sort of inherently open source. You can do closed source things on RISC-V, but the ethos of the RISC-V ecosystem, as well as most of the products that exist, are open source, and it is customary to even publish the schematics for the boards online. And so we're talking about open source hardware here, not just an open source operating system, and open source firmware as well. There's a couple caveats, and these are listed on the router presale site, which is that there is no such thing as a Wi-Fi 5 or Wi-Fi 6 module that is fully open source. It doesn't exist in the world. So you don't have to use Wi-Fi with this router. You could just use Ethernet, right? And that would exclude the Wi-Fi card. But if you want Wi-Fi, there are some closed source blobs in the Wi-Fi firmware, and there's no way around that. So we do not claim that our Wi-Fi router is fully open source. It is as open source as a Wi-Fi router could possibly be in this world. It is the most open source router in the world.
Let's peel back the onion layers. No pun intended here, right? Why is that so important? Because I think that most people that are watching us right now, first of all, we've run polls. Opti, why don't you run a poll right now? How many people are running nodes? Let's run that poll. When we normally run that poll, Matt, we get the majority are not running Bitcoin nodes. And then the conversation about, sovereignty, right? Which is not only about having Bitcoin and self-custody, and that's part of the sovereignty aspect, but it's also running your own version of the Bitcoin software so you don't have to trust anybody else. The router falls into that stack, right? And could you talk a little bit about how current mainstream routers are right now in terms of what type of code are they running behind the scenes that no one is really looking and paying attention to? Why is it so important to run an open source router? Why is that important, Matt?
So you're right. This is one component, right? A router is one component of a computing infrastructure. We started with the server because the server is the brain of computing infrastructure, right? It's where all data are processed and stored. And the vast majority of people in this world are not using their own servers to store and process data. They're using third-party clouds for everything from Bitcoin nodes to their messaging and their data storage. And so our goal, broadly speaking, is to facilitate the emergence of a decentralized architecture for personal computing, where people are utilizing client devices such as cell phones, laptops, smartwatches, you name it, that are connecting over private networks to personal servers that are running open source software that stores and processes all the data associated with their lives, effectively reproducing the current computing model with no loss of convenience or security, with a totally self-hosted, private, secure, and sovereign model where only the things that you explicitly choose to share with anyone and for any reason get shared. Everything else is inherently private and secure and stored on physical hardware that you personally control for yourself, your family, or your business. We call this sovereign computing. In order to facilitate the emergence of sovereign computing, we had to start with the server. It's the biggest piece of the puzzle that has been inaccessible to people for many, many years. We have, with StartOS 0.40, now I think achieved a level of reliability and user experience that will make running a personal server accessible to 70% of the computing literate population, which we consider to be a huge milestone. It is now possible, not only possible, but it is reasonable for you, anyone watching this, anyone who basically knows how to navigate a computer, to run your own server and tell every SaaS provider and third-party intermediary and custodian that you have ever done business with that is currently acting as a surveillance deputy of the state to take a fucking hike. It is now possible. Beyond just the server, we have now the router, okay? Because the router is the traffic controller, right? The router is what decides what devices get to talk to other devices, what packets leave your house and hit the internet, and what packets from the internet can enter your house. The router is the traffic controller, the gateway, and the guardian of your home network. And as we introduce more and more IoT devices, smart TVs, doorbells, et cetera, and as we introduce AI-powered devices, the access to your devices is increasingly important, right? We don't want a scenario where lockdowns take on a whole new meaning, right? You can imagine a pandemic where you're locked to your house, but this time you're physically locked in, right? Like your doors will not open. And if you leave, everyone knows, et cetera, right? Like we are entering an era where control over information and IoT devices using artificial intelligence can and will unleash the largest dystopian slave-based era of human history unless we are able to utilize our computing devices without the intermediation or custodianship of these big tech giants and governments. So the router is an essential part of the computing paradigm. And for the last 5 years, our customers and community members have been asking us what router they should use to remain private and secure in their networks, especially from their ISPs and all the websites and everything that they visit from their home. And we have not been able to give them a really good recommendation because every router that has the requisite power, privacy, and security that they would want is basically too difficult to use. It's too technical. And the routers that are easy enough to use are usually the ones provided by your ISP, right? You sign up for internet, they drop a router off at your house, they plug it in, they show you how to set the network name so that it can be something funny, and then you can set your own passwords that can be something you remember and give out to guests. And that's about the extent of your interaction with your router, is you just accept this device, some mega company dropped off at your house, you name your ID, your SSID something, set a password, and then boom, internet happens and you just sort of move on with your life. What you haven't realized is that that device that got dropped off at your house is not your device. Every single thing that you do in your home now, every button you push that goes to any other device in the home or outside the home is 100% visible and intermediated by your ISP. They have invaded your home in the most inappropriate way possible. And you did this passively because one, you didn't think about it, or two, you accepted that there was no other way to do it. The only way to reject this is to reject their router, to tell them that you don't want their router, that you will provide your own. In this case, you have to go to the secondary market and shop for a router. Most people stop there because the choices there's enormous amounts of choices. And like I said, the really good ones are very, very difficult to understand and use. So we set about solving this problem, right? I didn't want to build a router. I wanted to recommend a router to people, but we could not find a good one. We couldn't find one that properly balanced power with ease of use. So we built it. We have the most powerful router in the world, and it is insanely easy to use for even an average person. And it's not on the shelf yet, but it will be in the next, few weeks.
Man, that's, first of all, it's incredibly exciting and necessary, right? You said specifically, you didn't want to do this. You felt like you had a necessity to do this. Where does the Bitcoin node fall into this, Matt? Does it have it built in, or is the Pure something that you plug into the router itself?
So you had mentioned earlier when we were first talking about this a few years ago, there was an idea that we would have these be the same device, that we would have the server and the router be one and the same, right? Basically a server that can perform routing functions. And it very quickly, as we set about building out the server, we realized that this was not the correct approach. It's sort of like putting a microwave in your refrigerator, because every kitchen needs both, right? Or something like that. So, different appliances have different purposes, and division of responsibility, modularity is the proper approach to engineering. You don't just add more and more functionality to one device. And the straw that broke the camel's back on this decision was that we realized people were going to have multiple servers, right? You should have multiple servers because you want to divide what the purpose of each of those servers is. Like one server is handling, your Bitcoin and Lightning node, and then you have a different server which is handling your family photos and data and messaging, then maybe a third one for experimentation. You don't want those to be the same server. So if you have 3 servers, they all need a router. But if all 3 servers is a router, now you have 3 routers and they're all competing for who does the traffic controlling. So it really didn't make sense to make these the same, one and the same, right? You have potentially many servers, but you also have many other devices on your LAN, right? You don't necessarily want your router to be your server, because what happens if you have to restart your server? Now your internet is out, right? You can't access the internet from your phone or laptop because your server is restarting and your server is your router. So for those reasons and more, it became very clear to us that the router is a dedicated device whose responsibility is the privacy and security of the local area network and the gateway to the internet. That is the purpose of a router. And so we just set about building the best router possible. It has nothing to do with Bitcoin. It has nothing to do with this space. It's just a router, but routers are really, really cool. And we're gonna try to make people aware of that, because you can do some really advanced, fun, secure privacy things with this router that you probably didn't imagine you would be able to do. Now, the server sits behind this thing and does whatever you want it to do, which, on this show, what a lot of people would want to do, hopefully, is run a Bitcoin node, which
Yeah,
we've made easier than ever with 040. It's pretty awesome.
absolutely. A huge fan of the. I don't have a technical background. Huge fan of the Start9 operating system, and the really cool things you could do. You could download a multitude of apps, not just the Bitcoin software that you want to run. Private messaging app. It's so cool. One of my favorite things is when I'm traveling abroad. Like not only does my Bitcoin wallet connect with my Start9 node at home, but I just like logging into it remotely over Tor. It just, I don't know. I feel like a cypherpunk, even though I don't really have, the tech background. But I sure do feel like it when I'm connecting to my Start9 node over Tor. So it's really cool, guys. There's a link in the description, like in every other show. And Matt's been a great friend of the show for many, many years now, and really exciting to hear the server launch. The router launch. I have more info here. I'm going to drop it in the chat. You guys could go check it out on Solo Satoshi. There's an article on it. And you guys could check it out. Someone asked the question. Two questions asked. Let me start with this one. Buck52,000 said, "Does the router software have a VPN in it?"
And then some. So the router has first class support for WireGuard VPNs, but not just clients, also servers, and multiple of them, right? So you can set up as many VPN clients on the router as you want, simply by clicking add client and pasting or uploading the WireGuard config file that is given to you by your VPN provider. So Proton VPN, Mullvad VPN, you name it, right? You just paste it in and boom, now you have that capability on the router. You can then add another WireGuard VPN and actually chain it to the first one, and Start WRT will actually show you the chain visually in a graph. So for example, let's say you want all of your home's traffic to go out through your Mullvad VPN, right? You would add the Mullvad VPN to the Start9 router, and then select which profiles you want to use it. In this case, you would select them all. So that way, everyone who's in your home, every request they make to the internet goes out through this VPN. But now you say you have some guests coming over or whatever, and you say, okay, anyone who's using this profile, I actually want their traffic to go out through a chained VPN structure. I want their requests to hit Mullvad VPN, then to hit Proton VPN, then to hit the internet. And you could do this indefinitely. You could put 7 VPNs in a chain Your internet traffic would slow down considerably, of course, but unraveling that would be nearly impossible for anyone. So, our basic stance is as follows. If you need extreme privacy, like privacy from the state, in most cases, all you need are 2 VPNs in competing jurisdictions. Non-cooperative jurisdictions is actually the correct word. So if you get a VPN in one country and a VPN in another country, and then you chain them together, it would require the cooperation of both states coercing both companies that provide the VPN service to collaborate with each other in order to unravel your internet activity. So in most cases, you only need 2, so long as they're in competing jurisdictions or non-cooperative jurisdictions. But you could chain as many as you want together. That's for outbound VPNs. For inbound VPNs, you can add as many VPN servers to the router as you want, such that you could access your LAN and control your home devices remotely, but you could also allow friends and family to access your LAN remotely to control specific devices, right? So I could, give one person in my family access to my home so that they could, drive the robot around, and another person access to my home just so they could use my Bitcoin node. And then I get access to my home remotely so that I can do everything no matter where I am in the world. And these are all different VPN servers assigned to different people. I know that sounds technical, but once you're in the UI, all of these things are buttons and they're very, very clear. So again, very advanced networking capabilities made very simple, which is just not present in any other routers.
That's awesome, man. Very, very cool. We have some more questions. We're going to address them right after the break. We're going to be right back in just a little bit. Here we go. I want to give a shout out to our partner, Ledn, the leader in Bitcoin-backed loans. Ledn lets you unlock the liquidity in your Bitcoin without ever having to sell it. Since 2018, they've issued over $10 billion in loans to more than 10,000 customers worldwide. I love these guys, and not only do I have an account with them, I also have a loan. And here's what really sets them apart. There are no monthly payments, and you can pay back the loan at any time. Once you send your Bitcoin as collateral, you can have cash in your account within 24 hours. Ledn has over 1,000 5-star customer reviews, and they've never lost a single dollar or single sat of customer funds. So if you want to tap into the wealth of your Bitcoin without having to sell it, head over to learn.ledn.io/simply today, and you'll get 0.25% off your first loan. I want to give a shout out to our partner, sat123.com. Sovereignty isn't just about your money. It's about your communications too. When the grid goes down, most people go dark. Cell towers fail in hurricanes, cyber attacks, and blackouts. But satellite phones? They don't rely on local infrastructure. Iridium has 77 satellites in orbit, giving you a direct line anywhere in the US, even offshore. If you hold your own Bitcoin keys, you should hold your own comms too. Sat123.com also has everything you need to start building your Bitcoin citadel. Starlink, battery backups, Faraday bags to protect your hardware wallets, and much, much more. It's a one-stop shop for anyone serious about resilience and off-grid independence. Stay connected, stay independent, stay sovereign. Go to sat123.com/simply today and use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the store. I want to give a shout out to our partner, BitKey. If you already self-custody your Bitcoin, you know the deal with hardware wallets by now. Complex setups, clumsy interfaces, and a seed phrase that can be lost, stolen, or forgotten. BitKey fixes that. BitKey is a multi-sig hardware wallet built by the team behind Square and Cash App. It packs a cryptographic recovery system and built-in inheritance feature into an intuitive, easy-to-use wallet with no seed phrase to sweat over. It's simple, secure, self-custody without the stress. Time named BitKey one of the best inventions of 2024. Get 20% off at bitkey.world. That's BITKEY.world with the code SIMPLY. I want to give a shout out to our partner, HIVE Digital Technologies. Fueled by clean energy, HIVE has quadrupled its global Bitcoin mining footprint and channels that same scale into high-performance compute, where their AI cloud is now ranked #1 in the world for network performance. At HIVE, you've got dual engines, Bitcoin and AI humming, roaring, accelerating in unison. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're rewriting the playbook on sustainable digital infrastructure. You can catch the latest buzz at Hive Digital Tech or at hivedigitaltech.com. All right, everybody, we are back. And of course, we got the one, the only Matt Hill joining us on today. Let's go through some more of these questions. Second question is WireGuard compatible. I don't know what that means, Matt.
He answered that. He answered
that.
Next one is, when did I ask that? I thought
you asked about the VPNs and he hit on
okay.
WireGuard.
Yeah. So it was like kill two birds with one stone. Got it. I don't even know what WireGuard is, but that's a good question. Down Under Blues dash F3T says, does the ability of remoting in make it vulnerable to hacks?
Only if you're vulnerable to hacks, which is what all hacks are, right? All hacks are social engineering. So if you don't keep your passwords and access control credentials safe, you are vulnerable to hacks, period. Whether that's remoting into your home through the Start9 router or just signing into X, right? So keep yourself safe and you're fine.
Next question we got from GFY, custom software or DDWRT?
We call it Start WRT is the name of our operating system, and it's based on OpenWRT. So Start WRT is an extension of OpenWRT. We have not changed anything. In fact, we have explicit buttons in the UI that enable you to launch the LUCI GUI that comes stock with OpenWRT in case you want to do something extremely advanced that we chose not to make accessible through our own GUI. And those changes will be, as best as they can be, reflected through the Start WRT GUI. So you can think of Start WRT as a as a convenient, coherent wrapper around OpenWRT, which is, again, infinitely powerful, but notoriously difficult to use.
So the next question is, can Matt come to my house and set me up? That's not a serious question.
Virtually, sure.
They do offer that, by the way, on the start9.com website. Next question. Let me see. I wish I could heard what Matt was saying about the VPNs. Just, dude, it's DVR. You can go back. I think that's all the questions. Matt, thank you so much for joining me on today's show. Always learn something when you come on. Congratulations with the launch of the router. And dude, super exciting.
When is the router live? Like how can people go check out, because I'm looking at the Start9 website. I can't find it over there. So what?
Because we haven't actually launched it. So
okay.
It works. I'm using the router in my house. It works, but we haven't shipped devices yet or released the OS software yet. We want to make sure it's really good. It is at an advanced stage at this point. And we have the pre-sale open. So if you go to router.start9.com, you will see the pre-sale page. We are taking orders at the moment in Bitcoin only. We're not accepting any fiat for the router at this time, Bitcoin or Lightning payments only. And you will be the first to get the device. We expect them to ship this summer. So I don't know, June, July, but no later than that.
Matt, another question for you. Francisco is asking, does Start9 have a Volan disclosure program? Would love to help out how I can.
I mean, we have an email address for security vulnerabilities if someone discovers one. So dev@start9.com is the correct email to use if you discover a vulnerability of any kind and it needs private disclosure. Otherwise, if it's a non-serious vulnerability, something that wouldn't be devastating or largely affecting lots of users, you can just create a GitHub issue for it.
Awesome. All right, everybody, before we wrap the show, Matt, thank you so much for joining us. I do want to give a shout out to our sponsor, The Bitcoin conference, Bitcoin 2026, is coming up in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 27th through the 29th at the Venetian Hotel. You're not going to want to miss it. This is the biggest Bitcoin conference of the year. Again, Bitcoin 2026 in Las Vegas, Nevada, April 27th through the 29th. It's this month. Get your tickets quickly, ladies and gentlemen. Matt Hill, thank you so much for joining us today on Simply Bitcoin Live. We appreciate it.
Thanks for having me on. All right.
All right, everybody. Enjoy the weekend. What's the Happy Easter, right?
Yeah, happy Easter.
Happy Easter. All right, everybody. See you guys later.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.